Hey guys, it's Ethan Ives here with Westgate Realty. Today we're here with my dad, Clifford Ives, who's also been a loan officer for over 20 years in the Springfield area. He's currently here with Gershman Mortgage. Today we're going to go over the basics on what you need to know as an agent when it comes to the loan process. We're going to talk about seller concessions, working with a loan officer, different types of loan types, and really how you can be a partner with your loan officer to make sure you get to closing at the end of the day. So one thing that I do, especially internet leads I'm talking to, but it can be referrals, sphere of influence. Most people haven't started the loan process at the point that you're going to start talking to them about real estate. So what I like to do is I first want to talk to my people. I want to understand what they're trying to accomplish, and then I can either match them with a loan officer, a loan program that I feel will work to where I can find and get them into a house. So part of that is introducing a loan officer, the pre-approval process. And even in that initial conversation, I like to give them kind of an overview of what a down payment's going to look for them, seller concession costs potentially, really how much it's going to cost them to get into a loan. And most of the time after I go through those high level items, they go, well, who's your loan officer? And a lot of times I go to that, and of course Dad's a great partner, and we have some other loan officer partners out there that we use, but we do a lot of business together, and I think we're successful doing business together when it comes down to our communication. So Dad, tell me a little bit about how you got in the industry, why we're here, talk about the pre-approval process, and talk a little bit about what you expect from an agent that you're working with.
Well, how I got into business is interesting because my wife and I, she didn't work, and we'd put a bunch of love into a house and we'd sell it, pay the bills off again, and buy another house. Well, every time we did these, plus my company I work for and sells with the food brokerage business, kind of changed different markets, and every time we changed markets too, we'd sell a house or buy a house. And I kept looking across the desk and said, I can do that, and I'm doing it. So that's basically how I got started. And plus, I was in the food brokerage business, and Sam's Club or Walmart was putting the hurt to us, and I got the signs and said, I need to do something.
You need to do something else.
That's what I did. So I've been with Gershman for 13 years. I pushed the button, but it's almost 14 years already this coming March. But it's a solid organization. Ethan he talked about our relationship. But our relationship is a huge communication relationship when we're dealing with these clients. We're always accessible. I can shoot him a text, he can shoot me a text. He said, hey, I need you to get this pre-qualified done. They want to look at this property. Can you get it done today? And we get it done. I got an assistant, Maggie, that helps me with that. And we make things happen like that. And we're always the conversation, hey, can you close this in this time frame? Is this going to work for you, or what's the actual closing cost going to be on this? And I reply. But it's so important, your loan officer that you're going to be working with, if it's me or someone else, is that you have that relationship. It's almost a friendship, honestly. My best agents I work with, I have a true friendship with them, and we communicate well, and we're there for each other. Because there's times when I need him to address things for me, and he gets back to me. And that's the type of communication I think you need in this type of situation.
And I think, all agents, especially if you talk about new agents, a lot of times you don't get to, pick the loan officer, right?
That's true.
And when they don't have that relationship, and especially being a new agent, you don't want to sound stupid when you call a loan officer. You want to be the professional. You want to know what you're doing. But before you're writing an offer or working with these clients, you should at least, at minimum, have 1 or 2 phone conversations with the loan officer. You need to understand what monthly payment your people need to be in, what type of loan program. Do they have money for repairs? Do they have money for down payments? If you're not an open book with that loan officer before you write a contract, you could easily be writing something up where your client thinks they can afford it, but at the end of the day, they can't, right?
No, that's true. It's the same way with me, though. I always reach out to new agents. A lot of my clients will just come referred from my database, and they're already working with someone. Mm-hmm. But I got to build some type of relationship with them so I can get that communication I need to make it as successful for me and for my people to close properly. It's just as important as you
structuring it. Yeah,
you reaching out. a good situation is when that agent reaches out to me and talks to me. I go, all right, this is going to work.
And then you can work together to figure it out, you
Right.
know, and it can end up being the best for a client. I know, just off an example, one that we worked together, it was a referral from another agent. A client had been working with an agent she wasn't happy with, got out of her buyer's agreement, came to us. They were working with a loan officer. So I called the loan officer, did my, normal thing, and this was a first-time home buyer, not a whole lot of money to work with. And I go, hey, what's the best solution for this client? What's going to be their best rate? What do I need to negotiate to be best? And the guy goes, I don't know. I don't know what you want from me. And I'm like, well, I just want to know what's best for your client. And it blew his mind. Like, he could not tell me what I should structure. And he was trying to get her on an MDHC program. And the way he was going about stuff was not the right way. And we eventually got it flipped over to Dad. We worked out a 3% down conventional. We were able to negotiate seller concessions. This was last year when that wasn't so much of a thing. And we really got her in a house that now, here 12 months later, she ended up selling it, making a profit, and she's going to be buying a bigger house because her and her fiance have all these new jobs. And honestly, if we wouldn't have communicated, or if I didn't have the relationship with a loan officer like Dad, there's a good chance that I maybe would have sold that house, but they might not trust us enough to be a referral client. So
that's big. And the whole focus is our communication. But to me, it's the whole focus is taking care of the clients. What's really best for them. And if the agent knows what's good for the situation and for them, it's going to make your life a lot easier.
Well, then I can go find it.
Right.
I know what I'm looking for. I know what I need to work out. So instead of, pursuing properties that might not fit this mold, now I can go focus on the ones that will, and I'm not wasting my time with it. Plus, we're putting them in the best situation to have wealth in the future, have a home, and be able to build wealth through real estate, essentially.
Kind of when we were trying to put this together, we were trying to figure out when to start talking about the pre-approval process. And I think this fits in right now, because the most important thing to me about the pre-approval process is most people always go out and look at too much house, I believe. They don't even have a concept of their payment or anything. And then when they go look at the $225,000 house versus the $180,000 house, they're dejected. They don't want to move forward. They're frustrated then because they didn't get what they thought their dream home was going to be. And it's really serious. On the pre-approval process, we go to great lengths on our pre-approval to make sure their income is correct. When 2008, everything went south, one of the major things, the credit's going to be what it is. I mean, they're either going to qualify credit-wise or not. But if they don't, I can structure that.
Right.
I can work with that. But if I don't have the income, I can't make it work. And we have to go in and most of the time have to get their pay stubs, have to get their W-2s, and really make sure that piece works so we close properly.
And speaking about that pre-approval process, I know working with Dad, and actually the many times I've worked with a lot of Gershman loan officers over the years, they tend to focus a payment around what the buyers can pay, right? So,
That's one of my first questions, actually. What kind of payment do you think you're looking at? What's going to fit your budget?
Because that's what matters to them. At the end of the day, they want to be able to have food, money for utilities, rent, and then, right now with the way the market's going, I expect insurance and taxes to go up too. So
it already has.
Yeah, and it will continue. So, that's one thing to work. If the payment's working right now, we need to make sure it's working a year from now. Well, I know other loan officers who will just write the pre-approval letter and send the first one to the agents for their max amount they qualify, which most of the time is not what people should be doing. So having that conversation with your client, especially if it's not a loan officer you trust, around what they want for a monthly payment, don't just lean on the lender. You have to be involved in the finance process.
You do.
As an agent.
But it is the first question, and it blows a lot of people away. I say, hey, what kind of payment are you thinking? And because it's usually the payment doesn't reflect what they think they can buy. And it's a very serious conversation. Even on my webpage, I say, hey, it's better to be looking at your price range than $20,000 above. I've always found that to be a very serious thing. But most of the time we get all of our docs for this pre-approval up so that we are giving you a quality pre-approval. And when Maggie and I have assistant Maggie that works really well, we try to send all the details in the email, and I most generally always text it to the agent too, so they understand if we're asking for seller concession. They understand, and a lot of times I get wordy. I say, hey, they're looking from 175 to 125. They're comfortable in this range, but they'd prefer to have their payment a little bit lower, to give you an idea of what they're thinking, right, out loud. And I'm also going to say, in being realistic, if they're in this price range, can they go higher? And most time they will go higher.
Yeah.
But we try to avoid that if we can at all.
Yeah. You know, and really before you start showing them some houses, unless they've really been doing their research, they really don't know what they can afford and what they want for the price. You know, we've run interest rates going up over the last couple months have caused, you know, like Jesse's a great example. We were working trying to find him a house, finally found him a house. Well, heck, we run the numbers. All of a sudden, it's $600 more than what it was 3 months ago, and he's not okay with that. So, working around those monthly payments, and you know, we'll do another video down the line on how to do a mortgage calculator to get an idea of what price is for your clients. So pre-approval wise, though, you know, you're basically, what are you looking at? What do you take to qualify for a pre-approval? What's your client got to give you?
I just really basically need their pay stubs and their W-2s.
W-2s, so taxes, pay stubs, and a credit check?
And I'm going to pull their credit. I'm going to get their W-2s. I'm going to get their pay stubs. And I'm going to ask them their assets. I don't get the assets up front, but I try to do my best to verify that they have them. If I'm wishy-washy on it, I've got to verify with them where this money's coming from.
Right.
And if I don't feel comfortable about it, I'm going to share that with you. They say they can do this, I'm not sure they can, or something like that. Because you can fail when you're talking to people.
You get a good idea.
You know, I've been doing this for basically 23 years, and you get a good feel for people.
Usually your gut's right.
It is, right?
It usually is right.
It would have helped me on my picks this week.
Yeah.
I would have won.
Yeah.
But anyhow, that is the truth. I think we're going to lead into. So do you want to go to loan types first?
No, not yet. Okay. Slow down on me a little bit here. So pre-approval. So they're not pre-qualified, right? They're pre-approved. Let's talk about that a little bit. So just because you have a letter saying they're qualified, all you've really looked at is their credit, their income, and their taxes.
Now that's good enough to get you in the door and to get you a pre-approval, so you can make your offer and get them under. But we actually have to get all that stuff in. And the first thing, when we give someone a pre-approval, we send them a needs list. And we start gathering all those items because we know what underwriting is going to require. If they're going to be requiring federal taxes, which we usually always get those, we get their W-2s, we get their pay stubs, and we get their bank statements and their IDs. And those are the basic things that I need to get the loan to underwriting. It basically goes to a processor. The processor sets everything up, and she submits it for conditional loan approval. When we get conditional loan approval, we're probably at that point just waiting for title work and appraisal. And a lot of times we'll already have the title work
on there. So,
but the main goal is to have a conditional loan approval. We have a nice app that we work with now, and you can actually follow the loan through the app, and you can see where it's conditionally loan approved or not. But also our processors do a real good job of sending you notifications of where we're at. We just got conditional loan approval, and usually it'll be some maybe letters of explanations at that point, and we're mainly waiting for the appraisal at that point.
Well, and the reason I kind of bring that up a little bit about the pre-approval is if you're not working with a good lender that you can trust on that pre-approval, a lot of times, you know, a lot of these online companies especially, or out-of-town loan officers, ran into a lot of trouble where, you know, yeah, they've only took the most basic information. When they start going to processing, it's not even a doable loan at that point. I find a lot of people outside of this area, especially when you're dealing with like USDA and government loans, since we do so much of them around here, if you're not working with local lenders, some of these online people just can't get it done. So be careful, you know, whether you've got a buyer with a pre-approval or you're a seller accepting an offer. I think it's vitally important, if you've got a seller, to call the loan officer of the buyer and have a conversation with them. Most of the time they'll tell you, and if that loan officer is not answering their phone, you might take the offer with the loan officer that will answer the phone.
That's a good point.
So fast forward.
He brings that up. I'm going to bring in too. You know, I usually get a deal almost every month that has gone south from someone. And I would say 80% of the time I can save the deal. Most generally, someone hasn't analyzed it, or I know what I'm doing a lot better than a lot of people. But I usually save a deal almost every 30 days. I have
somebody gets them to you.
I need to knock on something.
Yeah,
I've had pretty good success this year. But if you get in that situation, give me a shot at it. I can't say I can save every one of them, but I
no, that's a good point. I mean, if you're sitting there and the deal's falling apart, whether you got the seller or the buyer, pick up your trusted loan officer, talk to them, have some conversations with different banks. I mean, talk to me. We can get creative to have a solution in a lot of cases.
Or likewise, if you're in a situation you're not comfortable about it, and you just want to bounce something off me to find out if someone's doing something right, I don't mind answering those questions. I do it all the time.
And totally, if it's the weekend or nights and I don't answer my phone, feel free to call him with the same question.
I usually always pick
I'm
up
joking.
the phone.
I'm joking.